Hey, how's it going? This is Melinda and welcome to my channel. Today, I am so excited to make this video. I am going to be talking to you and doing a review of the Van Halen Mobile Fidelity One Step. This is their self-titled debut album, now available on One Step. And I am absolutely so excited to add this one to my Van Halen collection. For a lot of you who watch my channel, you know Van Halen is my favorite band of all time. I love music. I love vinyl records. Van Halen, my love for that band is so deep in my soul that I cannot even communicate how much I love them. There's just no words. The memories of growing up and my life around Van Halen is amazing. And it's been that way since I was 11, 12 years old. I fell in love with Van Halen, and they've just always been, I don't know, the equivalent of my favorite pair of jeans or the best cup of coffee I've ever had. I don't know. They are right there in my heart. And they are an amazing band. They are summertime fun, Saturday night, funny lyrics, but they are also four very tremendously talented individuals. David Lee Roth, lead frontman, incredible confidence, swagger, clever lyrics, and an easily recognizable voice. Michael Anthony on bass, an incredible bass player, that golden high voice, and a passion for the band that shines through at all times. And then Alex and Eddie Van Halen coming to America from Amsterdam back in the early 60s and moving to Pasadena, California. Their parents were musicians and taught Eddie and Alex how to play the piano. Their mom was a very strong disciplinarian, but they had music in their blood. And at one point, they gave Alex a guitar and Eddie a set of drums. Eddie didn't click with those drums. It just wasn't for him. So Alex and Eddie switched. Eddie got the guitar, Alex got the drums, and the rest is rock and roll history. So I'm going to be talking about the sound quality of this One Step because I've done a blind test. And before I talk about that, I want to show you all of the copies of this record that I have. I have a first press Japanese version. I have the 2009 reissue that is the metalwork of the DCC version by Steve Hoffman and Kevin Gray mastering. I have the original of the original. This is very special to me. This is the radio station version. It is the 5 songs of the album were put on vinyl and sent to radio station to promote Van Halen and their upcoming album. This is just a very cool collectible, and I'm very privileged to have this. I also have just a US original pressing that my daughter has. I also, because I knew I would be doing these blind tests and I wanted to have as many copies as possible, back in July, I bought the Chris Bellman cut version, the mastered version by Chris Bellman that came out in 2015. I bought the whole Walmart exclusive box set. Okay, so out of all of those copies, the one that sounded the best to me is that Chris Bellman version. And I know some of you are being like, what about the DCC version? What about it? I wanted to love it too. I bought it with anticipation of it being amazing. And to be honest, the first time I ever listened to it, I was very underwhelmed. It was very flat. But now that I have some better stereo equipment, and I will list my stereo equipment in the description below so you can know what I was listening, the stereo equipment I was using during the blind test. You know, it sounded better, but it did not sound as good as this Chris Bellman cut. So this is the record that I put against the Mobile Fidelity One Step in the blind test. And this is a promotional copy they kindly gave me. Please don't tell Mobile Fidelity, but I would have bought it anyway, so don't tell them that. But anyway, so I did a back and forth. I want to give a special thank you to my husband because he gave up a whole Sunday evening to conduct this blind test with me. I stayed on the couch with my eyes closed the whole time. And he put on one record after another. Sometimes the MoFi was sample number 1. Sometimes the MoFi was sample number 2. He mixed it up so I couldn't catch on to any patterns. And I'm going to tell you the results, and then I'm going to give you a general feel of why I chose the way I chose, and then I'm going to go track for track and discuss the highlights of every song. So in this blind test, 10 out of 11 songs, the MoFi One Step won. So congrats to MoFi. Didn't know what I was picking. I just picked what in my heart and in my gut and to my ears sounded the best. One song, Ain't Talking About Love, was a tie. And I drove my husband crazy because I kept saying, put this one on, put that one on, put this one on. And in the end, I thought, you know, I'm not going to just pick one, a random choice. I left it as a tie because they both sounded so good. But 10 out of 11, the MoFi won. In a lot of the songs, it wasn't even close. Here's why. This is just, in a nutshell, a broad explanation. The soundstage on the MoFi was huge. Just huge. Unbelievably great. It's more of everything. We get more details, beautiful guitar tone from Eddie Van Halen on this. It's in your face. Eddie is in your face, and love that. The drums sound unbelievable. Even the cymbals shimmer. It's great. The Dave's voice, I really, you know, if you listen to any of these other versions of this album, you're not going to say it sounds like he's got a veil over or a blanket over the microphone when he's recording it. And yet, when I heard the MoFi, it did sound like a little bit of a veil had been lifted. His voice is so sharp and crisp, and you can hear it so beautifully well. The bass is killer. I love the bass. I'm a huge bass person. Bass sounds amazing, and it's the harmonies. They sound so incredible on here. So it's just a broad sweep of everything. More with the MoFi, but yet it's beautifully balanced and sounds so good. So let's go ahead and talk track for track, what I loved, just to give you a little bit more information. Of course, it starts off with Running with the Devil, and it really wasn't even close. Now, on all of these versions, I've always thought that horn sounded amazing. With the MoFi, it just has a whole nother depth to it. It's so amazingly good, that depth of that horn, and that bump, 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 and then it just explodes into this large sound stage. It's really, really good. And one of the things, and an example of why I like Dave's vocals on the MoFi. You know, first off, let's talk about Eddie's solo on here. And anytime I ever saw Eddie in concert, he was always to my right. And on this record, the imaging he's to my right. But for a couple of these solos, he pans to the left. And I love the solo in Running with the Devil. It's so amazing. He repeats it. And on that second time when he repeats it, I can hear Dave more on the MoFi than any other time. where he says, "One more time." And of course, that solo is incredible. You hear these amazing details. So Running with the Devil, wow, what a revelation. What a great way to start off this Mobile Fidelity version. And then it goes into Eruption. And the first time I heard it here on the MoFi, it was emotional. You know, I love Eddie. Eddie's my favorite artist of all time. I still think about him every single day. I wish he was here. That incredible solo is so inspiring. It was really just a warm-up that he would play, and Ted Templeman was so impressed with it. He said, "You gotta put it on the album." And so they did. And it's 2 minutes of rock and roll guitar playing history. His two-hand tapping technique inspired so many other guitar players. Often copied, but never duplicated. And on here, of course, that beginning of that solo, you hear those fierce drums by Alex. Absolutely amazing. And here comes Eddie, and you hear every detail, every note. You know, a lot of people, if you hear this solo, you think it's been sped up. But no, that's just Eddie playing fast. And it's so great. And then he goes into these high octaves. And that soundstage again, that's where that huge soundstage really pays off. And it's just an incredible listening experience. And then that guitar trails off and goes into You Really Got Me. The Kinks cover, so much fun. This is where Alex really shines on those drums. Those drum fills are incredible. They go speaker to speaker, unbelievable. There's also an amazing solo that Eddie plays on there. And at the end of the solo, it's got Dave doing those trademark screech noises he does along with Eddie. And there's an atmospheric quality that really kind of takes on really a special moment in that song. And I love it. And then we go on to Ain't Talking About Love, the tie. They both sound amazing. It's not that I thought, well, they're a tie because they're both mediocre. No. It sounds absolutely incredible on this MoFi, and I have great memories. It's a special song in my heart. I thankfully went in 2015 and saw what became Van Halen's final tour, and I brought my daughter with me because she is not as crazy about Van Halen as I am, but she's a fan. And I'll never forget, we were standing on the chairs. Everybody was standing on the chairs at that show. And the moment Ain't Talking About Love is that moment where everybody starts going, "Hey, hey, hey." And instantly, my daughter and I both raised up our fists. Hey, hey, hey. It was just this bonding moment, at least for me. I'll never forget it. I hope somehow in her heart she remembers that moment too. It's really cool to see the whole crowd getting into it. I also want to just give a shout out for Dave and his clever lyric writing. He has this sense of humor, and it's just so Dave. This one lyric, it's one of my favorite lyrics by Van Halen. You know you're semi-good looking and on the streets again. You think you're really cooking, baby. You better find yourself a friend. Isn't it just like Dave to be giving a compliment and an insult all at the same time? That's such a Dave lyric. Ain't Talking About Love is one of the highlights of this album, but to be honest with you, I love every single song. Then we go into I'm the One, another great song, and one of those amazing moments on this MoFi that stands out to me is the harmonies. Ba ba da shooby doo wah, ba 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 shooby dooby dooby doo wah. That soundstage just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And then Eddie starts playing the guitar and it all comes down. Show your love. So amazing. It is a standout on this one step. It's absolutely incredible. Then we go into the song Jamie's Crying, and that one is, again, one of those songs. Most people know that song. I have incredible memories. I heard that one back when I was a teenager, and I worked at Holiday World in Santa Claus Land, Indiana. It's a theme park. I worked in the games department, no air conditioning in the middle of the summer, but when that song comes on, it just makes me happy because I can remember being at Holiday World with a fan blowing in my face since we didn't have air conditioning, the smell of funnel cakes in the air, hearing children on rides having a good time, and Jamie's Crying being played several times a day, all day long, all summer long. And it's a great song. I never got tired of that one. And I love Eddie's bluesy sound. He kind of does this bluesy, just a little hint of blues on that one. His guitar sound is a little different, and it's just such a cool song. Michael Anthony's, he has that really high solo or high clear voice that's so beautiful and very unique to Van Halen's sound. But it's also Dave, and underneath all of that is a milder Eddie Van Halen that has a little bit of a rasp in his voice, a little grit. The three of them just sound amazing. So Jamie's Crying is such a great song. And that brings us into the heavy and amazing atomic punk. My husband thinks that song is a mess. I think it's perfection. I love that sound of that scratch guitar. Unbelievable. But what really took my breath away when listening to the MoFi was the part where Eddie starts getting into the melody. It just carries you away. Again, this large sound stage really serves its purpose on this one step. And I really love the way that song sounds. Then we go, and also I want to just point out, Eddie has an amazing guitar solo on that one, and it's fantastic. Then we go into Feel Your Love Tonight. That is another summertime, Saturday night kind of song. Really fun. Dave's lyrics are fun. And again, Michael Anthony and Dave and Ed, those incredible harmonies. Everything about that song sounds great, but it's just that ending when they go a cappella. I can't wait to feel your love tonight, and stops. Unbelievable. It's such a great moment in that song. The entire song's so much fun and it sounds so good, but that ending, that a cappella ending, is killer. Then we go into Little Dreamer. What a great song. I love that one too. And Eddie forgoes all of those vocal gymnastics that he does with those screeches, and he just sings that song. And again, that's where you hear Dave's voice unveiled, sounding really, really beautiful. And that whole song is really nice. The shimmering cymbals at the end is an outstanding touch. And again, I enjoy it, and it brings me right into Ice Cream Man. An incredible song. Again, this is one of those moments, this is a hard and heavy rock and roll album. This is one of those lighter moments where it's an acoustic guitar and Dave singing these fun little lyrics, and all of a sudden you get this atmospheric, airy sound. It's incredible, and the first half of that song is sung that way, and then he's like, all right, boys, I got bim, bam, banana, boom, the whole place explodes. And when I heard the MoFi for the very first time, I was startled because I'd never heard it quite that powerful before. It was really a very cool moment. And of course, that rest of that song is a rock and roll sensation. And I have a really cool memory of this waitress. We were in Florida, my husband and I were in Florida, and we like to ask the locals for suggestions of restaurants. And the locals were all telling us, you got to go to this, dive bar. They have great food. So we went there. And when I was there, I noticed this really cute young waitress, and she's got all the food, and she's holding it up on the tray over her head. And the song Ice Cream Man comes on, and all of a sudden, she starts singing along and swinging her hips with the food over her head. And I just loved that moment because she was so young. It just warmed my heart that this young girl, working hard, was having a little bit of fun at the job with my favorite band. So it's such a killer track. It sounds absolutely amazing and startled me, to be honest with you, on this MoFi. It goes right into I'm on fire. and those incredible harmonies on that song. Again, my husband's like, that song's a total mess. I'm like, no, I love it. Alex, he's drumming his heart out on that song. The drums sound so good on this one step. And it's just absolutely an incredible finish to an amazing album. So, wow. Yeah, this is such a delight. I am so glad to be able to give it such great reviews. It is everything I hoped for. It's everything I dreamed of. I love it. And I'm so glad to have it in the collection. And wow, what can I say? It is Van Halen at their best, their magical years. And I know a lot of people like Sammy, a lot of people like Dave. I like both. But I have to think, in my opinion, the magical years were with Dave. And what a solid debut album, one of the best of all time. And man, put them on the map. You know, they worked really hard to get there. They passed out flyers. They sang in backyards in California, and they did it for themselves, their sheer talent. I love Van Halen, and I always will. And let me know what you think. If you get this version, let me know how you feel about it. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.